Well, it's that time again. Welcome to Sam and Cathy. I'm Sam Roberts. You're Cathy Kelley.
I am.
And this is the companion show to Sam Roberts Show, which you can hear every night on Sirius XM from 9 to midnight on OB Radio, XM 103, Sirius 206. So get a subscription or a trial subscription or 100 different email addresses so you can listen for free for like a year. Whatever you want. I don't care. Just get Sirius XM. But also, we do this as an exclusive podcast every single week. So do me a favor, go to iTunes, go to the Sam Roberts Show podcast feed, because there's one of these every Monday and a Sam Roberts Show every Friday. Go, subscribe, rate, review, do the whole deal, leave a comment, all kinds of great. We actually read comments, so
Hopefully they're nice.
yeah, because otherwise,
I'll jump off a bridge.
Yeah, I have to say, like, that was the weird thing for me when I was starting in radio. Was I came out of college, and I did college radio, and I interned for Scorch in Syracuse, which was like a goof. But I'm sure he wouldn't love to hear that, but I went straight for, before my senior year of college, interning for Opie and Anthony, and then working for them after a little while after I got out of school, which meant that everything I did had a huge audience for it. So, like, as I'm learning the ropes and trying to figure out how to get good, there's a big audience for it. Like, you're not supposed to be seen until you have some kind of pedigree, right?
Yeah.
Not that you have to be like this A-level talent, but you at least have like a year or two maybe under your belt before a large audience sees you. But that never happened to me, which I think ended up being good in the long run, because part of my process of figuring out how to do this was figuring out how to deal with negative internet comments.
Yeah.
Because I had so much more than anybody else did starting out, because there were so many more people there to tell me how I needed to die and how I needed to not have anything to do with this. But I still have a problem, and it means much less to me now than it did, like, it would bother me probably as recently as like 5 or 6 years ago. I could be bothered by it. Now, I mean, I'm pretty beyond it. You know what I mean? And I keep myself busy enough. That's the secret. It's just keep doing more stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, keep yourself busy enough that you don't have that much time to, like, really linger on the comments.
Yeah.
But now they really do roll off me for the most part, unless I get into one of my moods where I start searching. And I figured out all the ways to search and all the different places I might find. Like, it's not even comments anymore that I would come across. It's like places that I would find it, and I'll go, like...
You know how to search it?
Yeah.
You're a Reddit fiend.
That's right. And I'll be like, no, but maybe they didn't call me Sam Roberts. Maybe they called me this.
Sam Robots?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm looking at a bunch of... I'm like, well, since when did Doug Loves Movies? When do they have haters? Nobody should hate Sam Robots. But I feel like I did you a great disservice, because you've been hosting for a long time. Mm-hmm. But it's like you were kind of building, like you were building AfterBuzz. You kind of came in as the AfterBuzz network was starting. Yeah. And helped build the thing from the ground up. And a lot of the stuff that you were doing, you were also producing and helping build and stuff like this. So you were able to, and that's the way to do it. Like, when I look at the comments from Sam Roberts Show people, they're overwhelmingly positive.
It's because they're people that came specifically for you.
Right.
Like, they want your show, they want your content, otherwise they wouldn't download or subscribe anyways.
Right. And they're also watching it build. Like, they're seeing you build, and they feel like they're building it with you, which they are, and that's what was going on with you. But now that you've left LA to come here and work here, and I think everybody with my audience has been good to you for the most part.
Yeah.
But then you go to one of the biggest audiences in the world, which is WWE.
Yeah.
And for the first time, you're actually having to deal with people who, without even looking at what you're doing,
judge, have a
Right, or sending you negative comments. They're
Yeah.
just ready. They're just like, ready. Okay, they posted something. Send.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did you a disservice because I found myself like, because I was going, no, you can't read internet comments. Like, you have to move forward. Like, if you read internet comments, you're gonna get bogged down. It's gonna slow you down. It's gonna blah blah blah. And I was like you can't go on like Reddit. And you're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if you go on, I'm like, because what I was trying to do was show you,
Yeah.
like, what I have to deal with, so people have to deal with it. And I showed you like how I search myself out, and then I was like,
I mean, like, I've been on Reddit before. Like, I like reading forums and everything like that online, but I never searched myself on those forums.
right. And I feel like I did you a disservice by showing you like my methods of searching myself, because I was trying to do you the service of saying, look, search me out because you could see that I get negative and we all deal with it and it's cool and it's fine. But instead, I realized as I was doing it that if you just replaced Sam Roberts with Cathy Kelley, you'd be searching you out, and now you could have to deal with the same stuff that I did. And I was like, no.
I mean, it's one of those things, like, when I was at AfterBuzz and when I was growing, I think I wanted to look online. Like, I would read every single comment because I wanted to know what people liked, what they didn't like, what we could improve on. And now I feel like, since it is a larger audience, it's not necessarily constructive criticism like it was before. It's just like mean, nasty hate for no reason.
Right.
And like, I did experience a little bit of that at the beginning of AfterBuzz, because it was that transition from when it was going from Maria Kanellis, Lillian Garcia, Jensen Karp, like a lot of Mike Bennett was on there, like a lot of big names to
Names that come with an audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
myself and Ryan Katz. And like, that was a shift of like, who the fuck are these people?
Yeah,
but
right.
like, after a while, I think that they realized, you know, we really enjoyed the product and had decent insights, although not ever having like been entrenched in it.
Well, that probably helped build the brand too, because now it's like you're not going to AfterBuzz to see people that you know from someplace else talking about a show. You're going to AfterBuzz to see the AfterBuzz people, and it becomes about AfterBuzz.
AfterBuzz was always a place where it was like fans talking about a show.
Right.
And I think that people really resonated with that, because it felt like, you know, if you didn't have friends that you could talk to about it, you were listening to your friends talk about it.
Right.
That's what it felt like.
Or if you didn't have friends to talk to about it, you could try to become a host, which is what you did.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
yeah, because you can't have social interactions if they're not constructive, right?
Exactly.
But so what you've been? It's been what, couple months since you started doing stuff with WWE that was like public?
Yeah.
So have you gotten? I feel like it's everything gets rushed and accelerated, right? So it's like at first it's like, oh my gosh, why are they? But like now it's like, oh, this is just what happens every time I do anything. Have you like made as much peace as one can make with getting negative comments?
I think you helped me with it a lot last week, of like being able to laugh at a lot of them, because they are so stupid.
Right.
Of like, it'll be, if Cathy Kelley doesn't slit her throat, I will for her. And then like in the bio of like the Twitter person, it's like kind and loving father. And then you look at their Twitter profile picture and it's even worse. So
yeah, I'll do that. Like I'll click on commenters to see, and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna smash them because they're being a total hypocrite. And I'm like, wait, you know what? Their life is probably not that great. If they're like, I pride myself on being a great father. I hate you, Cathy, for being on the YouTube channel. Like, yeah, there's probably stuff going on with them that's making their life bad enough that I don't have to.
Something that really I find so intriguing is like people that will have conversations with you tagged in it about you.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll go for like days of like, there was someone who's like, oh yeah, like this random person reminds me of Cathy Kelley, and then the person will comment back, oh, I could take her, and like, I'm like,
I could
what?
take her.
Like they could like fight me.
That's what I thought
and
that
I'm
meant.
Like, oh really, could you? And like in my mind I really want to comment back, but I'm not going to, because it's really not worth it.
And also, like, even if they could beat you in a physical fight,
does it matter?
But you're not a fighter.
Yeah.
It's not like you're like Misha Tate, and it's like, she's not that tough.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't think I was trying to show you that I was that tough.
Yeah. But it's one of those things, you know that, like, and I think anyone knows that. They've heard it before of when you expose yourself to that kind of audience, you are kind of like letting people into your life. So you are going to get like comments about like, oh yeah, she doesn't look like she works out when I do 5 days a week. So
Right. Yeah. And I think too that you have to, if you kind of make that agreement, right? That's like the old thing they used to say about paparazzi, where it's like, paparazzi is way more invasive than they used to be. But they used to say, well, you know, if you're famous, then you have to deal with the paparazzi, and that's like the cost of it.
Yeah.
Right. Which now I think it's more like, if you're famous, you have to deal with the fact, and you get on Twitter, you have to deal with the fact that this is what happens. And I think that that's fine. Like, I think that there needs to be trade-offs for things. There needs to be costs for things. Like, you know, Twitter and Snapchat and Instagram and YouTube and all this stuff, it's these amazing platforms, right, to like build an audience and to get content out there and to create and do all this stuff. And if literally the only cost is that people will be able to critique you, and the only cost is that people have an opportunity to invade your comment section, that's kind of a cost worth it, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, when you're building yourself, like, I think a lot of people think it's better to be talked about at all than to have radio silence.
Right.
No pun intended.
Right. Well, no, that's what I have every night on Sirius XM. Yeah. That was actually Sirius. That's what they pitched the name to me. They were like, why don't we call it Radio Silence with Sam Roberts?
That's a cool name for like an emo band.
Yeah. I was like, Low Expectations, huh? They're like, not high.
That's a great name.
Low Expectations. Yeah. My radio show name was originally Under Promise, Over Deliver. Because that's the philosophy. Don't have any expectations, and even when it's okay, it'll seem even better.
That is the best, though, because you go in and like you come out of it, and fans are like, "Wow, that was so much better than I thought it would be."
Right, I thought it was going to be terrible.
That was a disappointment.
Right, exactly. On the same note, did you ever? I guess because you've been hosting for so long, you were never the type of person that would leave comments positive or negative, right?
For other people?
Yeah.
No, I would never do that. Like, I have my thoughts for sure on like when I listen to something or when I watch something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I feel like they're pretty positive. Like, if I didn't like something, I just wouldn't listen to it or watch it. And that's the thing, especially with like free content. Like, I'm not going to complain if I'm not paying for it.
Right. But I think what's happened is that you've always had complainers, right? Like, you knew, even when you were going to school, before there was social media at all, there'd always be somebody on the bus that was complaining about whatever show was on last night and was complaining about whatever movie came out the weekend before. It was always somebody that could find the flaw in anything, and it was almost as if they were saying, well, I'm cooler than, like Captain America versus Iron Man, whatever it is. Like, they find the one thing to nitpick. You know what they really should have done. I can't believe you actually like that.
There are always going to be people that think that they can do it better, but they never actually do that thing.
Right, because they're too busy like figuring out how to criticize the other thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never really did either. But I was thinking about, you said that you were afraid that you were a millennial. Like, this is a very millennial thing.
Oh, to constantly check Twitter. You were making fun of me for that the other day.
Right. Well, because I think that, like, what's happened is...
I'm going to check Twitter right now.
You should. I think what's happened is people have started taking social media way more seriously than it actually is. Mm-hmm. Like, as much as it's a valuable tool, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter that much still.
Well, everyone thinks now that we have social media that everyone's opinion is valid.
Right.
Like, everyone can have an opinion.
And it works both ways. I think that we take negative comments more seriously because they're in our face, as opposed to those comments were always happening. They were just happening on a school bus or with a guy with his buddy in his basement.
Or, you know, just kept internally, and someone would think it and not actually verbalize it because...
But really it has...
That's common courtesy.
Right. But the fact that it's on Twitter doesn't have that much more power than if they were keeping it to themselves. Like, at the end of the day, like, it has power with you.
Yeah.
Because it seeps into your head And because then it starts screwing with how you perform, because this one comment that really should have never gotten onto your radar is now in your head.
I mean, they say for every 10 positive things that you hear about yourself, like whether it's online or compliment in person, for every 10 positive things, that can be outdone by one negative thing.
Right. It screws your whole brain up.
Yeah.
Because you go like, I think, because you look at it and you go, well, all the people with positive comments, they must be wrong. Because that one guy who said the negative thing, that sounds right to me. Like that's how I go.
Why is it
He's
that
right.
that's the only thing that sticks in your mind? Is like
probably because that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, I suck. Oh, he said I suck. He's right. All these people who said I was good, they're out of their minds. I don't know what they're.
But that's also one of the things is like I'm my own worst critic too.
Right.
Like I know when I do well or like when I'm being annoying or whatever it is. And so when other people verbalize it, it's like, why are you doing that? Like that just hurts my feelings.
I got it. Yeah, I know. Yep, I know. Yeah. I know they're crazy for hiring me. I know they're crazy. Yeah, like I know. I agree. That makes you better, right? Like being that self-critical. If you do it right, it should make you better.
In the past, it has made me better. For like a little bit, not so much so, but like when I was first starting at AfterBuzz, doing wrestling stuff, like I never had the intention of like when I was watching wrestling to ever have it be my job. Like I never thought like when I started watching it, I watched it because I liked it. And, a few months after that, I started talking about it on a podcast. Like that's how it all started. And, at first I really didn't know anything. Like a lot of the time. I knew
it. I told you. She doesn't know anything.
I know
she
nothing.
Doesn't say the names right.
I'm like the Jon Snow of WWE. I know nothing. But I think now I know a lot, and it's
actually
just,
I read online that you're like one of the camera people's daughters or something. So I figured you didn't know much.
Well, if it's online, it's probably true. So yeah, it's just one of those things where like when I had first started watching, I was watching for like 3 months, and so I knew those storylines of what was going on Monday Night Raw, and that was it.
Yeah.
And they were teaching me a lot of like the history of even just history from like a year or two prior. And I got some comments of like, oh, she's only on there because she's a girl. And it did make me want to get better because I never want to be stagnant as far as like.
But I think like also
my knowledge goes.
Yeah, and being self-critical tends to make you get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like because you don't even see yourself getting better. Like I still see myself as, the kid who was trying to get on at 2:00 in the morning once a week or once a month at first, right?
I forget about that too, of like where I came from. Of like if I were to go back and watch like the first year of AfterBuzz, even though I had already like been in the industry technically for probably 5 years at that point.
Yeah.
I was awful. Like I was really bad.
Right.
I was so nervous. I could barely talk. And then, I mean, going back to like when I was in high school, I could barely talk to another human being, let alone like on a video camera, like to a video camera. So.
Right. So you grow. Now, do you get jealous of the people? Because the other side of that is there are a lot of people in entertainment who have such, and at first you think it's got to be an act, but a lot of times it isn't an act. They have
much confidence.
They think so highly of themselves that nothing gets in their way, but at the same time, like they don't see what they're doing wrong.
Oh, I do, 100%.
But
like
you
that,
get jealous.
Not jealous, but like I wish that I had a little bit more of that kind of confidence, just because I feel like not having that confidence, like I know that it's a huge hurdle in my life.
Yeah.
Where I feel like I could be a lot further in my career if I didn't have that hindering me.
Right. Plus, nobody takes you seriously, right, if you tell them you have low confidence. Because everybody looks at you specifically.
Yeah.
Not like the general you. I mean, you, Cathy Kelley. Like, everybody looks at you assuming that you have all the confidence in the world.
Yeah.
Because you have reason to, right? And so when you go like, oh, I'm really not confident, they go, oh, whatever. Oh, pretty girl's not confident. Oh, and you're just like, this isn't helping.
I mean, I used to get that like everywhere. Like, and it's something that I think, some people point out to be mean and some people point out to help me. Like I had one of my mentors in LA on another wrestling show that I was working on, he used to tell me, he's like, in your backstage interviews, like, you know, I want you to be more confident. Like, you should own this of like, you are the one girl on the show. And like, that speaks volumes. Like, when someone's coming in to you interview them, like, yeah, you're putting them over, but like, you're in that shot, like, you are the girl, like, that's who people are looking at. And like, that
they're coming into your
like,
space.
It's weird because it, like, when people look at me, like, it's, I don't know, like, it makes me feel weird.
When people look at you?
When all the attention's on me.
So why'd you get into this business?
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I guess
I just really enjoy it.
Right.
Like,
right. Well, you know what I think it is? I think for some socially awkward people, like, there
like
is
me.
yeah. There's a cutoff. When there's a microphone or a camera or you're in a radio studio or whatever it is, there is this bubble that exists around you that allows you to be this sort of social, engaging person.
Yeah.
But you don't actually abide by, like, everybody has to listen to you because you're the one with the microphone. Like, you don't abide by the rules. You're not having a conversation. Like, you and I are having a conversation right now, but we're both weird people who would have a conversation. Like,
I mean, this is just, I'm talking to my friend, and there happens to be microphones around.
but if we did this live in front of people,
Yeah.
that would be like the way most people would actually enjoy being at a party with a lot of people. You probably would feel more comfortable if all the people were just sitting there, like, and there was no obligation on you except to talk to me, and then you could go. You know what I mean? There's this weird, like, social thing because you're performing, right? You're almost putting on a character in a way when you're hosting.
Yeah.
And it allows you to not actually have to be, like, you're in control, as opposed to when you have to be social, like, you actually have to be a person. And
well, it's easy, like, with AfterBuzz, with the Sam Roberts show. Sorry, apostrophe
I was about to say,
included.
you sound stupid.
I do.
Yeah.
Be as critical as you want about that.
Exactly. That's iTunes comments right there.
With those things, like, you know that there's an audience, but you don't see them.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I like that. Yeah, I want there to be an audience. I don't want to have to deal with them, though, because I'm worried that they're not going to like it. Now, when you said, like, do you ever get, I guess jealous is not the right word, but do you ever get, like, when you see people who are, they say ignorance is bliss. Like, when you see people who are confident, right?
Yeah.
And they're doing this and everything, and they think they're awesome. But they're really not, and everybody knows they're not.
Yeah.
Like, they still get to go home and think that they're awesome, which maybe is the same thing as actually being awesome. Maybe.
They're probably happier.
You think so?
Yeah. Although I knew a guy who was very much like that, of, like, he portrayed himself to be God's gift to earth.
Yeah.
When he was hosting, and at the end of the day,
he knew he wasn't.
I think deep down he was a very insecure person. He would never let that on that he knew he wasn't.
Right.
But
he was.
It was a lot of, like, making fun of other people.
So that we didn't
excluding other people. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To make him seem cooler than he is.
But and I guess we should mention that we're doing this out of my house today. We're not in the studio. It probably sounds different. We didn't mention that in the beginning.
Yeah.
But
and Adrian's not here.
But what I was going to say was I think people now take Twitter way too seriously, to the point where even, like, I was thinking about this, like, I've seen lots of people will, like, air grievances, whether it's with a person in their lives or the company they work for or whatever it is, on Twitter.
Or to an airline.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate that.
Exactly. I mean, I did it with Chick-fil-A. I mean, for me, it was kind of...
Yours was funny.
Exactly. I was like, let's see if we could start some trouble here.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, I think what's happened is people realize that just as much as Twitter is there to tell you suck, Twitter is also there if you want to get a whole bunch of support around something, right? And you don't realize, and we've learned this through Twitter and social media, that social media support has, I don't know if it ever actually leads anywhere.
I mean, like, with social media support, I think it does, because there are people that, like, especially with AfterBuzz, there are a bunch of, Twitter followers that I have that, like, I feel like I know them even though I've
Right.
never actually met them. Like they're so supportive that like I feel like they almost are friends, you know? Like
But
it's a community where like you like the same things. They have helped me grow. They've helped me get that confidence. And you know, when you're talking with someone that much about something
And that's
all the
fine.
time.
That I agree with. And like you actually do build a sense of community because I like all the loyal fans of the stuff I'm doing here that I hear from every week on
The Not
Twitter.
Samsonites.
The Not Samsonites. Or the people that I hear from every week that listen to the wrestling podcast. Or the people that I hear from every week that listen to this podcast. Like all those different people who are loyal to it every week. That I agree with. That builds a sense of community. But I mean like when you air grievances about something and you're able to garner all this support, like all these tweets are coming in,
Yeah.
and you think like, oh, we're really doing something here, we're really doing something here. But anybody that you're airing grievances with, if they're smart, realize that like that whole support system that you've built goes away in 12 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a cycle.
Yeah.
And it doesn't do anything. It's like the Coney 2012 thing or 2015, whatever year it was. It's like that whole system of things, especially if you don't build on it. Like I think that the stuff that you're talking about, where you were building this support system on Twitter, was centered around content you were actually creating.
It's a millennial type of thinking of, oh, if we put it online,
Right.
something's going to change. No, you have to go outside
And build something.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
yes, maybe you can raise money online, but you can't go and build a house online. Like,
Right. Let's just
there are things,
we can
like,
garner.
Let's raise money, or let's talk about how we need to, you know, support Habitat for Humanity. Like, retweet this to support. That's not doing shit.
Right.
Like,
Right.
You
And-
actually have to go out and like volunteer your time or services.
And it's true that raising awareness is important. But then you have to take the awareness right away because it doesn't last and do something with the awareness. It can't just be, okay, now people are aware. Now it's up to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happens. Like with AfterBuzz or with my stuff, it's a community of people around content that's actually being created. We're actually doing something.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times people will take Twitter so seriously because they can garner a whole bunch of support for something, but then not realize that what's the end game here. Like there's a lot of times there's no end game to it. And people get surprised when they just sit there and go, oh, nothing's come of this. You know, nothing has happened. So when you say that you're afraid of that you are a millennial because you criticize millennials, but you think you might be a millennial.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, on the timeline, of course you're a millennial.
I mean, I'm 100% a millennial. I think that, you know, even going back to college, like I minored in political science.
Right.
But I still feel like there's so much about the government that I don't know. And that scares me.
Well, yeah, because
Like there's so many things, but it's not that I don't
just
know.
look it
It's
up.
just that like I care more about other things than to look it up. If that
Right,
makes sense. Like
right.
it's
So you're
you know,
just-
I have a basic knowledge of these things. Like I know about the Constitution and the amendments and like what kind of rights we have. I know about like the delegate system and you know how voting works. But you know when it comes down to really researching every single candidate that we have, I don't know that that's something that like it intrigues me as much as unfortunately watching Veep on HBO Go would.
But you know what?
Like
Yeah, but nobody actually researches the candidates like that. There's like 1% of people who are a bunch of dorks that like actually research every candidate and go like,
mean,
where do they stand on the issues? It doesn't happen.
it might be because I'm a perfectionist with everything, so I feel like I have to know all about a
Right.
certain
Yeah, no,
subject. But like at the same time, like I feel like I should care more about that stuff than I do, you know,
Yeah.
other things that I care about in my life.
So at what point do you see negative millennial traits coming out in you? Because here's what I think about the millennials.
You called me out for checking like Twitter and Instagram too much, which I definitely
Oh yeah,
do.
you're like glued to your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm
And
like,
I think a lot of that too, and I was thinking about it this weekend, a lot of that is because like when I was living in LA, I wasn't as connected. I feel like I would go out on hikes and I would leave my phone at home. Like, I didn't care as much.
Right.
And then being here for whatever reason, because it's so cold and awful outside, and I have like 2 friends here.
Right.
Like, I have so much time to be on my phone.
I guess so, but you're doing it while you're doing other things.
Yeah.
You know, you could, if I were to buy that,
Yeah.
then I wouldn't see you on your phone as much. Because, you could be talking to me, or you could.
Well, I think it's become more habitual since I've been out here.
I see. So it's like, this is just what you do. Because what inevitably happens is you check your phone all the time, and it never seems like you're getting that much feedback.
I've always had, since I was young, like.
But by the way, you used to do that when you traveled here from LA too.
No, I know, but like since I was young, I was always doing 2 things at the same time. Like when my mom would come home from work, we would eat dinner, and like after dinner, like maybe we would watch a show together, and I would always like both of us would be on our computers. Like that was just I think she kind of instilled that in me a little bit because she was like working while she was enjoying stuff.
Yeah.
And so for me, because like she's doing something important, she's like writing a grant application to get money from the National Institute of Health,
right?
Which is way more important than checking Twitter. But like,
or looking for dresses.
That is the closest thing that like is work for me.
Yeah,
like
it is.
Social media is work,
but multitasking is not good.
Why?
Because you can never do what you're supposed to do to the highest of your abilities if you're multitasking.
Yeah.
I do a lot of things, but I do everything in my power to not. I mean, it drives my wife crazy sometimes. I won't even like. I've been like, we're driving someplace and I'm in the passenger seat.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, well, will you call them?" And I go, "No, I'll call them when I get home. Right now, we're driving." And it's like because I don't.
I mean, that's the extreme.
It's a little extreme, but no, because you won't. Number one, you don't really know the breadth of what you're doing. Like you don't.
Yeah. I think going back though, it's weird because going back to like 4th grade, I remember my teacher having a parent-teacher conference with myself and my mom, and him saying, I feel like while we're doing a lesson, Cathy's always doing something else. Like
right.
She's always doodling. She's always whatever it is. Like I was doing something else, but that was in a weird way the only way I could retain information, because if I wasn't doodling, I was daydreaming. So
right.
Then I would cut myself off from everything.
Right. You see, like, I would doodle and daydream in school, but I wasn't multitasking.
Oh.
I was not paying attention to school.
See, my thing was if I was drawing or if I was, like, making something like, origami or whatever at my desk, I was still listening.
But were you listening?
Yes, I was. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because
I think it might have been like 90%, but I was still retaining that information.
But also, I mean, I get that you do that in school because it doesn't matter that much, like what the teacher's saying. Like, you don't care about it.
I was actually interested.
But you weren't that interested.
I mean, I think that
you wouldn't, if
deep
you were
down, if I was given the choice, I would rather be in art class or, later in life, like editing video. Like, I would rather do something creative.
If you were interested,
yeah,
you wouldn't be daydreaming because you'd be like, oh, I'm locked in on this. You know what I mean?
Well, I told my mom at a very early age, and my teachers all told my mom that I had ADD.
Everybody's got ADD.
I know. Well, both my brothers were diagnosed, and she was like, no, that's fake.
Right. That's what my mom would. We didn't even get to be diagnosed.
Another thing, like I think it was around 4th grade, I remember at soccer practice, I was running and I felt like my throat starting to close, and I told my mom, I was like, I think I have asthma. She's like, no, you're faking it. You're lying.
But guess what?
And then a couple years later, my mom went to the doctor.
Yeah.
She got diagnosed with asthma, and they said that it runs with family.
Did you ever get diagnosed with it?
No.
Did you ever get an inhaler or anything?
No.
You seem fine to me.
I just don't run.
Well, who needs to run? Who needs to run anyway? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think if you can get, first of all, on that note, if you can get away with not being diagnosed with something, go for it.
Yeah.
Like, the less diagnosis you have, the better. But, yeah, I really think that, like a lot of millennials have ADD. Yeah. You know what I mean? And if
we're so overstimulated by things nowadays.
Which is why I think it's important for people to want to do you want to do as much as you can, or do you want to do the best that you can? You know what I mean? And if you want to do the best that you can, I think breaking yourself of the habit of multitasking is important.
I think both.
You can't do both.
Why not?
Because if you're multitasking, you're not doing the best that you can.
I want to do a ton of the best stuff that I can.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I want to do as much of the best stuff that I can.
If you want to do as much of the best stuff as you can, then you just got to do it one after the other you just can't take breaks, which is fine. But like, I think people need to, part of it is you have to stop and focus on what you're doing. You have to consistently be in the moment, especially when you're doing stuff like this. Like,
yeah.
You have to, and I mean, from this week on the Sirius show, there are people who get very bothered when they see you. Like, they don't get what you get in your head, that you're not being rude. You're listening and you're on your phone and blah, blah, blah. But they're like, oh, like I'm not holding your interest.
Well, one of those guests was just very chauvinistic, and I didn't want to listen to what he had to say, so that's why I was
so you were
doing
being
other
rude.
stuff.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So it's not that you were trying not to be rude. You're trying to be rude.
Yeah.
I see. Oh, that's different.
But it also
then.
didn't help that, like, before he came in, you were like, Cathy, remember you hate this guy?
Well, you do.
Yeah.
So I wasn't doing anything out of line, but no, I think that doing as much as you can at the same time always leads to doing it in a way that is not the best way that you could do it. I mean, it gives you no time to strategize anything. It gives you no time to, like, be reactionary to things, right? Because you're always, if half your focus is over here, the key to being really good at something is to focus on it.
Yeah.
Right? And just be locked into it. And if you're not locked into it, then you're going to end up not giving it your all. And sometimes you have these great moments where, because you're not really thinking about it, something funny will just come out of your mouth, and that's fine. But, long run, you're always going to be able to perform better or probably get more done if you're not multitasking. Like, for instance, you said, like, you get on your computer and watch a show, right? Mm-hmm. But it's like you're only retaining part of what you would have retained from watching the show.
Yeah.
And you're not.
But do I really need to retain everything that I'm.
It depends on what you're watching.
Yeah.
Like, when I'll go, like, okay, I'm going to watch this show because, well, I mean, I have to talk so much on the air. Like, I don't watch that much stuff that I don't think at some point I'll be able to talk about. But I like to have a lot of stuff in my head.
Yeah.
So that at any moment, and you've been there in the studio with me, I can just pull something out, and now we're having a conversation about this. But that's because I'm absorbing the information fully.
And I think, I pick and choose, like, what I absorb fully. Of, like, there are times when there are no distractions.
Right. But, like I'll sit there, because I've done that before. Like, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to be on my computer and watch this show. And I'll realize, like, 2 hours have gone by. And
you don't remember anything from the show.
I don't remember anything from the show, and I don't really think I got that much done on the computer. Or I got, like, 45 minutes worth of work done on the computer over the course of 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I didn't retain anything from the show, and my computer, and whether I was editing, like, I'll be like, I have to edit a video, but I want to watch this show. And, like, halfway through the show, I'll be like, I don't remember what was said on the show, and this video is coming along really slowly. Mm-hmm. And that's when it's like, oh, well, if I just say, okay, let me not watch this show and do this intensely for an hour.
Yeah.
Then watch the show, then go back to this.
I mean, I can't.
More gets done.
I can never edit video while I'm watching a show, but I can reply to emails. I can, there are certain things I can do. I know that.
I also like to let emails wait.
Oh.
That's my thing. I don't like to reply to emails immediately unless it's very, very important.
Yeah.
Because that sets a precedent. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a person who replies to emails immediately all the time, people are going to expect that from you.
I reply to emails from work as soon as I can.
If you have to, yeah.
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 And then a lot of the time, like, when I have to, like, re-edit a script or something, I feel like I can't just sit there and think. Like, I need other stimulation so that, like, it helps the creative process of, like, that triggers a memory of, like, oh, that joke would be good. Or, like...
Yeah, I guess. But I feel like if you're editing a script, you need to get into the world that you're writing. right?
That throws me off so much. I can't do it.
What do you mean?
Like, I might be able to, like, get some stuff, but I need to, like, I don't know. Like, I need to have something else going on so that it, like, triggers other things.
But aren't you worried that if you're writing and you're watching something that you think is funny to, like, help motivate you to be funny, all of a sudden you realize, okay, I just wrote a script that looks like an episode of Always Sunny?
No. Well, I think that's a different kind of script. We're talking about two different things. I'm talking about, like, quick internet shows, and you might be thinking of, like...
Script.
Yeah. Writing a television script, which I'm
Yeah.
not doing.
I don't know. You could be. I write stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, but there's no way I'm writing with anything else on. Can't happen.
Well, we're different.
Plus, I feel like you should be able to get an internet show done real quick. Like, let's do it, right?
It's harder than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think you can, like, make it up as you go sometimes, but...
I think that you have that ability and most people don't.
Right.
Because you've noticed that before, too, with other people.
Right. I'm like, why don't you just make it up? And they go, like, well... Because I'm like, well, if I can do it, just make it up as you go and make it good.
I like to be over-prepared for anything.
Right. I get that. I know a lot of people are like that. I've been like that in the past. But, like, I'll get over-prepared for something and use none of it, and then realize that I could have used that time differently.
So, like, a good example of stuff is, like, when I was preparing for red carpets. Like, say I was preparing for...
Yeah, see, that's crazy. Like,
the Emmys red carpet. And I have to go through, like, hundreds of people and research all this stuff. I would, like, sit and watch shows while I was doing it. Like, I would have the TV on in the background, and I would, like... Maybe not a show that, like, I'm really dedicated to. Like, I would never do that for a Game of Thrones because you have to be really focused on what's going on to retain anything in that show. But I would have something on in the background, and then, like, I would do my research. And I feel like that made the time go faster than, like, if I was to just sit in my living room by myself with my computer, no sound, no nothing.
See, it makes the time go faster.
But I would get so distracted. I would get so distracted if I was just, like, on Wikipedia researching someone. Right. I would be like, after 10 minutes, I'd be like, I can't do this. I have to leave.
Right. See, this is, first of all, like, red carpet's different. Because red carpet's, like, you have to be prepared for everything because you don't know what's going to happen.
But that's a lot of my job.
Right, totally.
It's, like, being prepared for everything.
So I did a couple red carpets. My dresses were not as nice as yours. But I stopped doing them because I didn't like them.
Yeah.
But I would never prepare for them. I'd just be like, I know these famous people are. I just ask them, whatever. But it never clicked in with me. So, like, when I'm prepping interviews or whatever, it's more, I'm prepping long form. And I also end up in situations like, you go to this wrestling show and they're like, yeah, we're going to get you some interviews. I don't know what that means. So it's like I kind of have to be ready to interview all of them. Luckily, I, again, don't multitask, so I've retained quite a bit of wrestling information in my brain that I can pull out at a moment's notice. But I also, I think that, I envision, the same way I said when you're writing a script for a TV show or a movie, you sit there and you envision, you put yourself in that place.
Yeah.
So you can write better. Like, I start envisioning the interviews. And go like, well, how is this going to go?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to start there. If I start, that's how I know when I've done enough research, when I can do the interview in my head. And then go for, and by the way, most of the time, it comes out being a completely different interview, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But as long as I have, it's the same way I do everything.
It's being over-prepared.
Yeah, I guess it's just in a very different way. So do you think you have negative millennial traits? Because I think, here's the thing about millennials. I think that they get a bad rep because only the negative side is talked about, really. And I think that's because it's mainly old people talking about millennials.
Yeah.
It's just a generation putting down the because Gen Xers, you guys were great. Terrific. But I think that there is, and to me, I feel like I'm on the, what would you say a millennial is? Is it, because I've, before, I was considered on the tail end of millennial, right? So is it 35 and under?
I mean, I think it's more of a mentality.
Well, I mean, millennial is, we could talk about it as a mentality, but millennial is, I feel like there is Gen X.
Yeah.
Gen Y is quick and short, and millennial is a generation. Like millennial is a baby boomer.
Yeah.
You know, and
I
baby
would
boomers.
say, yeah, like 30, 33, 32 and below.
Yeah. So literally, I'm just at that cutoff point, and which is good because I think I see it from a different perspective. Because I did grow up. I remember before the internet, you know, and I grew up. We had Stretch and Bobbito on the show, and you heard me talking about it. I grew up when you had to, if you wanted music for free, it was a cassette tape in the radio, and you hit record. Like all these experiences.
Yeah.
I had, and then I also saw culture grow into what it is now, and can kind of. I'm not too old that I can't get my head around that because I grew up with that as well, and I was, you know, I was selling wrestling tapes on the internet, and I was on, you know, e-commerce in the very beginning of e-commerce and figuring all that out. So I think that millennials are embarking in a really interesting world, and I think that older people don't quite get the world. So there's two sects. I feel like most people feel like millennials aren't working because they're doing what you're doing or what I'm doing. And when you and I were young, now we have products to show for it, so nobody's going to accuse us of that anymore. But before we had something to show for it, people would assume we're just kind of messing around.
Yeah.
Right?
That's happened with every generation, though.
I think
which
so,
is
too.
why I don't really take the criticism of millennials as seriously as most people do.
Right.
Because every generation says that the next generation is like
Weaker.
lazy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think that's true. You know, and the baby boomers looked at the hippies. Like, what?
Like,
These
wow, they
boys
don't work
with
at
long
all.
hair? Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of those hippies now have jobs and have helped society.
Totally. So I think that the what's happening is the millennials have, you know, revolutionized a lot. Like, let's be honest, Mark Zuckerberg is a millennial. You know what I mean? There are a lot of cases of young
the CEO of Snapchat, like all
Exactly.
these people have created something
innovators
that's, like it or not, changed society.
Yes, and they've been used millennial thinking to do it. Like it's thinking differently. It's using technology. It's maybe not being as traditional in terms of being monetary.
Yeah.
When I started working, I was working for free when I got out of college, and I thought that that's smart. Because it's going to put me in a place where eventually I'll be in the place that I want to be in and be able to make money over time. My dad did not understand that at all. And I think it's the same way, you know, when we talk about Zuckerberg, it's Facebook coming out and being like, no, we're not putting anything on it yet. It's not making money yet.
He invested a lot of money into it himself.
Right. And got investors to do that. So I think that, and I think that millennials have more tools to succeed than any generation ever has. Like,
but that's what sets, you know, the people who are going to succeed apart are the people that actually work.
Yes. So here's what has happened. I think that working 9 to 5 the way every generation before ours did is not acceptable if you want to be next level successful. If you want to just make a fine living and just kind of blah, I got kids, I got a wife, I got a dog, I got a ranch house, you know, whatever. Like, you can get by on 9 to 5. But it's interesting because you keep hearing that there are no jobs for millennials, right? But I've never seen a time when a job could be created more easily. I've never seen a time when it was more easier to either be an artist or an entrepreneur or someone that creates. And I've never seen a time when it was easier to create your own source of income on a global scale. This is not like coming out of college and being like, well, I can't get a job, so I have to build a brick and mortar shoe store.
I mean, even if it's not a entertainment outlet, it's like you can create mittens and sell them on Etsy. Like you can there's so many different ways that you can be successful.
It was interesting, you know, Johnny Cupcakes, who is a friend of mine and has a clothing company that's like extremely successful.
I've seen you wear his shirts.
Right. He sent me a whole box of them. He's a smart kid, that guy. But Yeah, yeah. He's just extraordinarily successful, and he's a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
But he was smart enough to see the world around him in a way that it's like, okay, if it's not working for me, let me make it work.
Yeah.
And his first business was, while he was in a band, he went out and bought fabric, like felt, like or heavy fabric.
Yeah.
And he would just cut it into strips and then cut like fringes on the end. And after his shows, and he was in Boston, so it was cold, he would sell his scarves. and literally he was buying fabric that wouldn't fray at the ends. So he didn't sew anything. He was literally just getting a big thing of fabric, cutting it into strips, and selling scarves at an affordable price, but making a ton of profit on this fabric that he just bought. And it's like, it's seeing stuff like that. And you're right, now you take that idea, you can, if you find a fabric store that's just
good,
dope,
you sell it on
Etsy,
online,
sell it wherever. I mean, it's become so much easier and it's become much easier to get eyes and ears on you, which is the most valuable thing you can do. There's a lot more riffraff to kind of sort through, right? It's a little harder to stand out from the people, but that's also the difference between innovating and seeing what's happening and copying it, you know? And being comfortable with taking the long road as opposed to trying to figure out what's working right now.
Yeah.
What's working immediately. So I think that what happens with millennials is the negative connotation is that they want this sort of Zuckerberg level of success that a millennial is capable of, but
they're not willing to put in the hours.
They want to put the hours in that their parents put in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the way it works. Like, if you want that, it's not that much different. Like when Donald Trump was making millions of dollars in the 80s, you think he was doing 9 to 5 or you think he was living it?
I think that a lot of it is not knowing the stories behind people's success of like, now we're so prone to seeing the success, but we're not hearing the stories. Like, I think a great example is like Brie Larson is like, most people just think that she popped up this last year and won an Oscar, where she's been doing this since she was a kid.
Right.
She's been acting since she was a child, and like, not just like kind of acting, like kind of it. No, that was her full-time gig. Like, she didn't really have a real like growing up experience because she was acting the entire time. And now, yes, she's successful in this last year, like very, very successful, but like, people don't understand
how much work
goes into it before.
And that you have to, your motivation is to be successful in the sense that you want to be the best at the best you can be at what you do.
Yeah.
But like, as much as you want to win, you can't be looking for those short-term goals. Like, you can't go to your first audition so you can make, $100 million.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, with you, like, I started listening to your shows like a couple years ago, but I didn't know at the time like what you were doing before. Like, I didn't hear about like the interning and like all of that stuff of how you even got to that point.
Right.
So. Right.
And and that was probably the most valuable thing of doing the whole thing was like, I'm 22 and I'm 22, 23. I might have been 23 by the time I got hired. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm officially hired now. I'm going to be here with Opie and Anthony for a year, and then I'm going to move on to something even bigger and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to be the youngest to do this and the youngest to do that. And it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I was watching people around me, because obviously you're going to end up focusing on the people who are succeeding doing what you thought you were going to do, or that you perceive as doing better than you, even though they're really not. And I was watching people become successful, and what I felt was like more successful than me.
Yeah.
And being like, oh my God, what am I doing wrong?
But you have to realize that those people also think that you're successful.
Not only
that, because they don't see the struggles.
Right. Not only that, but then, or like I'd see like somebody who went to high school with me. I was like 22, 23. Somebody who went to high school with me was on The Real World. And I'm like, he's on TV.
Yeah.
Every week. He's going to be so famous, blah, blah, blah. And then the best part about being in the place I'm in now is I've gotten to watch everybody who had short-term success, who had early success, fall back down.
Because they don't know what it's like to actually work.
There's no
struggle.
foundation.
Yeah.
It's like building a house in Tornado Alley out of straw. And you're like, well, I built the house first. It's like, it's a pile of straw.
Yeah.
Tornado season's coming. What are you doing? And they're like, yeah, but you're still building yours.
Yeah.
And guess what? You know, I'm putting brick after brick after brick and laying the concrete and doing all this stuff. And that straw house, I mean, apparently he didn't read about the 3 wolves.
Yeah. I love Chris Hardwick's story because he was the host, singled out. Like, that was one of the biggest shows.
Yeah.
Kind of dropped off of, like, being in the limelight for a really long time.
It was funny. I thought about just that because I was, I don't know if you read, I read a lot of stuff, but you know Frank Zappa?
Yeah.
The rocker.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Dweezil and Ahmet Zappa are his sons. And they were fighting with each other over who got to tour with Frank's music. And I was reading this beef that they had. Like, one of them said something publicly, and then the other one put out a New York Times editorial. And then, I was on one of my loops, and I remembered, the Zappa brothers used to host a show on USA. And I remembered that because there were commercials. This was like 95. And I was like, I remembered that because there used to be commercials on Monday Night Raw for the show that the Zappa brothers were doing after Raw.
And you remember that because you weren't multitasking.
I wasn't multitasking. I mean, and it was a little more difficult to multitask in the 90s. But no, I mean, you talk to real wrestling fans from like the early 90s, and you talk to any of them, they will all remember every Silk Stockings commercial. Because 93 to 95, it was Silk Stockings every single week. Yeah, I can't say it once. But they had this show, and it was like a variety show that the Zappa brothers hosted. And so I looked it up on YouTube to see if I could find any episodes, and I found one. And it was like this show that like Sable was on it from WWE because they wanted the tie-in. But it's like there's no celebrities on it. Like, it's not big names. And Chris Hardwick is one of the panelists.
Really?
And it's like it's in that in-between time where he's just like grinding. He's struggling.
I mean, that's the thing is like he created Nerdist. Like, that's a huge brand. And now, you know, he's really successful with like At Midnight and a lot of the other projects that he's working on, and so many projects that he's like behind the scenes producing that people don't even know about. But like, when you grind that long, like, you're gonna make it. And he's now more successful than like I think a lot of the people that he, you know, was surrounded by at the very beginning who you know, had very, very quick success, but it didn't last. It wasn't the same kind of like, he's built his own empire now. Whereas they, you know, got to walk red carpets and stuff at the time, but now no one cares.
You can even look at the hosts of that show and figure out who grinds and who just accepts the rewards. And like, you know, I don't know Carmen Electra, but she strikes me as somebody that got a couple good opportunities and accepted them because look where she's at. And Jenny McCarthy strikes me as somebody who grinds because she's somehow still in show business.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't happen. Like, for a woman to get hired because she's a hot chick, like, let's be honest. They found a Playboy model that could, you know, make funny faces. And they're like, all right, you know, 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds will come home after school and watch this.
Yeah.
It turns out she was very talented. But once she got that opportunity, she started busting ass.
Yeah.
And she's actually made a career out of it, which is incredible. And I think that I think that becomes missing from every generation. The unfortunate thing is the amount of attention that certain things get. I think the most detrimental thing that's happened to millennials is the sensitivity that exists right now. And that, like, I would have hoped that with all the YouTube comments and the Twitter comments and all this stuff, that
people get thicker skin.
Yeah, that people become hardened. But instead, they don't. And what happens is because stories get passed around so much now, right? Like Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff, people's success stories get passed around. And these stories, and you do hear even more, I think, of the stories of people's struggle and the work they put in and all this stuff. But it doesn't change that people are lazy. It doesn't change what lazy people's mentalities are. And they look at this and they go like, oh, well, I'm never going to be able to become the biggest entrepreneur in the world if I'm interning for free. And you go, what? Of course you are. Like, that's how it's supposed to start. And they go, no. I'm not interning unless I get paid, and we have this class action lawsuit. I mean, you hear about this, all these companies that now have to pay interns. And I'm like, you just took all these spots. Like, it's not like a company's going to be like, okay, we're going to bring on the same amount of interns. Like, okay, if we have to pay interns, we're going to be picky and choosy with who we bring in.
Yeah.
And it's like you killed another avenue of success. Like, you just stopped that avenue for people.
Yeah.
That's why there's less opportunity. It's because everybody needs to be told that they're good right away.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, it's okay to tell people they suck when they suck. Like, you have to tell people they suck when they suck. A good leader, I think, is like, no, you're not. You suck at this. Here's why.
Yeah.
Here's what you can do. And then is like with you and coaching you. Like, you know, do you ever hear an NFL coach being like, okay, you know, guys, I know we didn't win, but I was thinking, okay, let's go to an amusement park. We'll go to an amusement park together so we do a team morale. No, they go out there and they kick the shit out of them until they do the job properly. And I think that is how you achieve greatness at something, and it's missing. You know, and as a lead, like I look, you know, I'm responsible for people now.
Yeah.
That I'm kind of leading, and like, there's a difference. There's some people that I can sit down and be like, here's what we're doing, here's what you should be doing, blah blah blah, and they're just like, yeah. And there's other people that I sit down and I go, here's what you should be doing, and they go, what, you don't like what I'm doing now? And I'm like, oh, God damn it. Like, that, well, I'm not having this conversation. Like, just let me coach you.
But then there are people that get it, and there are people that are never, ever going to get it.
Right.
And that might be, you know, their parents telling them that they're, you know, being taken advantage of because they're working for free or whatever it is. Like, there are people that just aren't going to get it, and you just have to, like, let them do what they're going to do. I was talking to Mackenzie the other day, phone screener for Sam Roberts show.
Who, by the way, is a warrior.
She's a hustler, but like she doesn't realize that like people see that, I think, right now. Like, she doesn't realize.
Does she realize that she's doing it? Because I think sometimes people are warriors like that. Like, that's when you know you have a true warrior.
Yeah.
Because my vibe on Mackenzie, who comes in, she's this like young, hot, 22-year-old girl,
happy to be there all the time.
But I say this because she could be half-assing right now. Because at 22, she's got the looks that would allow her to just accept. Like, she doesn't have to be working hard. But instead, she literally comes in. It's a 3 to 4 hour commute each way. She comes in to phone screen for my show. Mm-hmm. Phone screen.
For free.
3 to 4 hours each way for free every week.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, it's not even for free. It costs money.
Yeah.
I'm not,
oh, yeah.
Nobody covers her transportation.
So it's, you know,
like
$20 of train tickets plus gas plus, and then, you know, she's still in school.
Right. But she's a warrior.
She's also doing other opportunities similar to that where she's paying to work. And she was bummed because the other day, like, one of those opportunities wasn't panning out as much as she had hoped. And it was, I think, weighing on her of like, oh, well, I've put in all of these hours and like, it has to work. Like, well, you know, it's something that I realized, like, through my years of doing it, like, being in the grind of, like, sometimes those opportunities just don't work out, and you have to focus on, like, the ones that are, or, you know, take a lesson from that and bring that to the next opportunity that you get. And she was like, well, I'm paying, you know, like, so much money to, like, get here that I don't have. And I was telling her about how last year I paid for flights for myself to come from LA to New York. I think I've told you this. I lied to you that I was going to be in New York for 2 weeks when I was really only going to be there for SummerSlam so that I could be on your show. Like, and I told you, I was like, I will get you coffee. I will do whatever. Like, I'll intern because I just want to learn.
And then this is when I knew it was like, okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Like, when I was like, okay, I'm going to take you up on it. And like, you know, I didn't let you on the air that much.
Yeah.
Like, here and there.
Yeah.
I let you feel it, but it's like, yeah, I'll send you out to get coffee here. I'll send you. And then you were like, when can I come back? I was like, here we go. We're on to something now. Now, yeah, we have somebody who gets it.
But that's, you know, like I was telling her, it's like that's going to happen to you for the next 5 to 10 years. Like,
But
you are going to have those opportunities where, like, you just have to, like,
suck it up.
Yeah.
It's bigger picture, though. And that's what I mean about, like, focusing on the big picture. The whole thing is, like...
Most people would never do that.
Right. The thing of, like, putting in all these hours and putting in all this money is not necessarily... Even though you think it's to get that job, it might not be to get that job. You might be paying for the experience that is revolving around that. And when you leave that place, even if you don't get the job you thought you were going to get, that experience comes with you. So it's not like you're starting from scratch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that big picture way of thinking, that, like, this is good for me to do. I'm growing and learning from this. And if I don't get that job, I'm still taking the knowledge and the skills that I picked up here that I couldn't have gotten otherwise, and being able to bring it someplace else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we did it. We changed lives again, Cathy Kelley.
It's a lot of just venting on a podcast.
Is it venting?
I don't know.
I don't know. But if you want to tell Cathy that she should slit her throat, her Twitter name is Catherine Kelley.
Don't do that.
I wouldn't think that anybody would. And her
But it's going to happen.
Especially if you do like this for an hour, and then they're like, yeah, I listened to your podcast. Sucked. Thanks. And Cathy Kelley on Instagram. And don't forget, please, we're on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, but rate, review, subscribe on iTunes. We post this every Monday, and we post a Sam Roberts show every Friday. You don't have to worry about it if you subscribe. So check it out, and thanks for hanging with us.
Talking about putting in work, you're doing 5 videos a week for Sam Roberts online.
I was thinking about that. The YouTube channel is now a daily upload channel, Monday through Friday. So I got Monday through Friday, Sam Roberts Show, 9 to midnight. Monday through Friday, new video gets uploaded on YouTube. Monday, Sam and Cathy podcast. Wednesday, Sam Roberts Wrestling podcast. Friday, Sam Roberts Show podcast. Yeah.
Sammy Internet.
That's right. Sammy Internets. We'll see you. So, yeah. Hopefully. So I'll see you next week here on Sam and Cathy, but you have plenty of opportunity beyond that to see me again. So don't get distraught. Thanks, Cathy.